The next lecture here is topics in crop production. And this is supposed to be a class discussion. And just to give you an idea of how it starts, I ask people to imagine that they own a growing operation. They own a farm. And what are all the things they need to do? All the things they need to think about, all of the activities that are important for this growing operation to function. Inevitably, I get a whole bunch of different inputs from students about uh, I need fertilizer, I need tractors, I need irrigation pipe, I need pesticides, and they talk about what is it going to take to grow, and they just think about growing a seed into a finished plant. And it takes a little bit of discussion to get them out of that mentality. Uh, so we just talk for a very few minutes about some of the concepts just to lubricate the brain a little bit. And then I break the students out into groups of perhaps 5 students per group and have the students come up with a list. And then after maybe 10 minutes of discussing in the groups, we come out with our breakout sessions. And every year is always a little different, but it always comes down to a very similar list that I have in this brainstorming outline that I have provided here. And we go view, zoom. I'm going to zoom in where we can see this better. Maybe. All right. So this is not a comprehensive list, as it says, but it is, I think, a pretty good overview about things organized in ways maybe you didn't think about. And so I would ask you to look at this list, go down and think about these things. So on the business side, I'm not the production person, I'm not out in the field. I need personnel management. Some people call this the human resources department, and you need to deal with the human resources department. And it's more than just personnel management, but I need to hire employees, fire employees when necessary, handle payroll, and all of those issues associated with managing your employees. I need safety and job training issues. So there's hazardous materials handling. We deal with lots of hazardous materials in agriculture. We have to deal with the Occupational Safety and Health Association in California, the Cal OSHA. We have to deal with pesticide safety data sheets and risk management plans and emergency response plans. All of these things are safety. And some of it's what the managers have to worry about. And then it's training to make sure that all of the people responsible know what to do. And everybody else in the company who's not directly responsible for a particular safety issue is at least aware of the safety issues around in case there's a safety warning. Where do I go? What do I do? Where's the place we go in case of an earthquake? Where if there's a chemical release, where do we go to make sure that everybody's safe? Benefits. That's including your 401k plans, your health insurance, your what is it called? Your disability or unemployment insurance, vacation pay, and on and on and on. All of those things that would be qualified as benefits. I need somebody to deal with accounting and cash flow. It costs money to run a business. You got to pay your bills. You got to collect the debts other people owe you. Inventory management, including purchasing. I need to make sure I have all of the boxes and pens and cell phones and replacement tires and seed and on and on and on. I've got to make sure I have enough to keep me going until the next order comes in. Supply chain management. So again, that's uh, related to inventory, but it's not exactly the same thing. I need to make sure that I'm keeping good relations with my suppliers and also good relations with my customers. So the whole supply chain of moving through our company is moving efficiently, so we're making money because it is the flow, the supply chain flow that allows you to make money. Profit and loss. You're needing to look at, you know, are we being profitable? Do we need to make adjustments? We need a sales team. And sales is not the same thing as marketing. And I did not put marketing here, but marketing is all about advertising. Sales is about making the deal. Very different kinds of things, even though people put sales and marketing like they're the same thing. They're not. Customer service. Got to make sure not only your customer, for most growers, your customer is either Safeway or Nob Hill um, or Food Max or wherever you're selling to, or the broker is your customer. And a lot of people think customer service as the consumer. They're not the same thing. Is really important. Customer is who buys directly from you. Consumer is the one who actually uses or eats your product. In the case of farming products, you eat produce, right? Customer buys it from you. Rarely do you sell directly to the consumer unless you're going through farmers markets or some small chain like that. Otherwise, you're selling to a broker, to a retailer, to something like that. But you need to make sure your customers are happy. You also might put here consumer service, which is kind of a side shoot of marketing, I would say. Federal, state, local assistance programs like crop insurance, information technology, all of your computers and cell phones, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Land, you need to make sure that you're paying your leases on your land, you're buying land if it makes sense. You need union contracts if you're a union operation. You need contracts with all of your suppliers, growers, shippers, processors, retailers. Again, lots of contracts. That's business. Corporate structure. Are you going to be a privately owned company? Are you going to be a corporation? You can be a privately held corporation. You can be a sole proprietor. You can be an LLC, a limited liability company, or a series corporation, S Corp. There's lots of things you need to worry about. It has to do with taxes and also liability in case anything goes wrong. And insurance, there's negligence, insurance for negligence of activities, criminal insurance. So if somebody steals from you, uh, food safety, what if there's a food safety problem? Are you insured? Fire, flood, theft, lawsuits, blah, blah, blah. What happens? Marketing. That's why I didn't have marketing up there next to sales. I forgot. I put marketing in its own category. Everything from advertising, packaging, brand recognition, consumer and retailer PR, public relations. You're trying to have a good image. When people think of you, they get warm and fuzzy inside rather than uh, they think you're the evil empire. And there are different ways to go. I mean, some companies, they want to be low price. Low price can overcome a bad image quite a bit. People vote with their pocketbooks. And if you're cheap, inexpensive, you can get away with something that might not fly for other companies. If you want to be a high end company, well, you've got a different public relations issue. You have to justify why you're more expensive, why you're a premium product of some sort. You might be involved with a vegetable association. So if you do lots of uh, mushrooms or lettuce or asparagus or something, what are you going to do? Are you going to be associated with an association that helps collectively market your product. Something like Got Milk, right? Got Milk. That is the National Milk Advisory Board. And we have our local Strawberry Commission. We'll talk about vegetable associations another time. There's a whole assignment associated with vegetable associations and other industry resources. And then production, what most people think of when they think about this class. Crop selection, grow the right thing or things, because you don't just grow, oh, I'm in Salinas Valley, I'm going to grow lettuce, and then I'm going to grow lettuce, then I'm going to grow lettuce, then I'm going to grow lettuce. It doesn't work that way. You're going to end up with disease and things are going to crash. You need to rotate your crops, and you rotate to keep disease from building up in your fields. You need to manage your soils. You need to make sure your seed is properly tested for seed health. You need to make sure that you are allocating your resources properly, your tractors, your employees, your cash flow, so things move. And resource allocation, I find that interesting because I've talked to so many growers over the years and how they see their job. And a lot of them have said repeatedly, my job is to be a traffic cop, or my job is a scheduler. I don't farm. I'm in charge of farming, but I don't farm a damn thing. I make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. Or some of them talk about being a firefighter because they're putting out fires all day when things are going wrong. And things go wrong every day when you're trying to grow a large farming operation. You have things break down that you weren't counting on, people not showing up, they get sick, there's a car accident with one of your sales employees, and whatever. You're bouncing off the walls trying to make sure everything is where it needs to be to keep things moving forward. Fertility management, fertilizing your crops. Scheduling, that's huge. We've got a whole assignment on scheduling. And when we do that assignment, you're going to see how massive that is, because a lot of people think that you start at the beginning and you just grow a crop. But that's not the way it really works. You start at the end and you mentally work your way backwards. So I start on December 15th, I'm going to be selling 2,000 pounds of lettuce to this particular company. I have 11 months to get there. What do I need to do? That means to harvest, I need to be harvesting it the day before, and then I've got to be irrigating so many days before that, and then I've got to be planting so many days before that, and you back yourself up into the getting the bed ready. When does my tractor have to be there in order to get the bed ready? And when does the previous crop have to be out of the way so I can do that? Now, if I'm selling lettuce in December, I'm not doing it in Salinas. I'm doing that in Yuma. But that's beside the point. But scheduling is massively complex. And it's something you can manage when you're really small, but the bigger you get, it gets very cumbersome. Pests and diseases, weeds, etc. The hazardous materials, because if I'm dealing with pests and weeds, I'm dealing with the hazardous materials to take care of them. The IR4 program, that is an emergency program for pesticide use. Not an emergency program, that's the 18, Section 18. The IR4 is an off-label minor crop use of chemicals, because everything we grow in the Salinas Valley is a minor crop. You might think, what? Strawberries are huge, lettuce is huge. Well, compared to corn and soy and wheat and some of these agronomic crops that are grown in the Midwest, everything else is minor. And so a lot of chemical companies don't want to spend what could be $100,000 just to put one crop on their label. To add lettuce to a pesticide label might cost you $80,000 to $100,000 or more. And if I'm only going to sell $50,000 worth of material, it's going to cost me $100,000 to put lettuce on the label, I'm not going to do it. Even if I'm going to make 120 as the effort, all the resources I need to divert to make that happen and to get the safety to put it on the label, am I going to make that happen? No, I've got to make a lot of money to put it on the label. It's got to be worth my time. And so a lot of companies don't put a lot of the vegetable crops on their labels. A lot of times they do, but when they don't, the IR4 program is there to do some independent testing through the university system, the University of California system, and they can get approval for chemicals to be safely used on crops that are off label. They produce a supplemental label allowing you to legally use it. But again, you need to be aware of that. And what if there's no IR4, there's no label? Section 18 is where the state or county can come in and make an emergency use permit to allow you to use a chemical for an emergency pest or disease situation in a given area. Are you going to grow conventional or are you going to grow organic? Huge marketing decision and production decision. You need to be handling weather. I used to monitor the weather every day. When I was up to my eyeballs in agriculture, it was an everyday thing. I would check the detailed hourly weather reports every day. And I would be listening to my weather band radio. I would have it on in the background, and I almost never turned it off. I would have it on playing, and I would turn it up when I could, turn it down when I needed to make a phone call, turn it back up, and it was just background noise. But I would always be aware. I would hear when something was changing. Very important. Weather. Days to harvest. We have a whole um, uh, class related to this scheduling and days to harvest and other related issues. Irrigation management, food safety, again, just so many things you have to deal with. And there's more. If we spent some time, there's more we could talk about in production. Here's a few more here. Quality control and quality assurance. What about the shop? You got to have a shop to keep the tractors and equipment repaired and set up. I need all my vehicles leased. Facilities. So I've got a warehouse where I'm storing the pesticides. I've got my front office. I've got to keep all of those facilities maintained. I've got to cool my product, transport my product, store my product. Maybe I've got precision ag, so I've got GPS systems that need to be dealt with. Maybe I'm dealing with value-added processing, so that would include bagged salads or sliced apples or fruit cups or something like that that we're making. Modified versus controlled atmosphere packaging or storing and shipping. So you don't just throw things in a bin and ship it sometimes. You, these days, frequently will gas flush with nitrogen gas to slow down the respiration of the product because it's living. A head of lettuce is still alive, even though you separated it from the roots and you started the slow process towards death of that head of lettuce. It's still alive up until the point where you cook it, freeze it, well, even freezing, but cook it or eat it. It's still alive. And many crops, not lettuce, but many crops, you got to deal with pollinators and pollination. So I need bees. I might have to rent bees. What about science? I need to do my R&D department, process improvement to grow better. So I'm always comparing how I'm going to grow things. One of my greatest mentors of all time, he always was doing research in his fields. And so he always had a stripe down his fields from, you drive by the roads. So that must be one of Dave's fields because there's a stripe down the field because he's trying something new. And sometimes it's a little darker than everything else or a little lighter than everything else because he's trying something new. But again, there's lots of research that you might deal with. Some of it might be engineering technologies, genetics technologies, pest control technologies, all sorts of different things. And you have to deal with the agencies. Maybe you're not the one who's doing all the research, but you have to keep your finger on the pulse of that research. So you're constantly reading things that are coming out of the US Department of Agriculture or the California CDFA, California Department of Food and Agriculture, or the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, or the university system like the University of California, you're reading, 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 and making sure you know what's going on, what's new that I could implement and make my operation a little better than the next. Personnel and personal. So my own stuff, continuing education. Am I going to keep learning? Am I going to go to workshops? Am I going to take a class at college? Um, am I going to do something to make myself better? What about math and communication skills? Am I going to improve my metric conversions, my dilutions, my acreage calculations, the financial analyses that I do to run my business, making more efficient and effective emails and reports, more efficient and effective at meetings and other things? You need reading, writing, and math skills for everything. You might not need the quadratic equation to be growing crops. And I hear a lot of people complain about the math that they learned in high school because I never used the quadratic equation. But you do use a lot of very important skills, and you need to recognize when things are correct or not correct. Statistical analysis. That's probably one of the most important classes I could recommend that's not directly in our major, stats. Take a stats class, because if you understand statistics, you can make better decisions are for business or for production. And of course, in bold, time management. Of all the things I want to do, I got 100 hours of things I want to do every day. And there's only 24 of those hours. And at least 6 of them I want to be sawn logs, sound asleep. So what am I going to do with the rest? What am I going to do with the other 16 or 18 hours that I have? I got to eat. I got to do other things. I'm not working the whole time, hopefully. 16, 18-hour days of work is really tough. I've put in quite a few of those, and you don't want to put in too many of those. They're really hard. Even 12-hour days are brutal when you do enough of them. How can you do a typical ag day? Ag doesn't work 8 hours. You're going to be working 10 hours in most ag situations, but that's okay. If you like what you're doing 10, maybe 12 hours sometimes, but they're good hours. And those 12 hours include a good lunch. And, how do you manage your time to get done what really matters? So that is an overview of way more than you thought you had to deal with if you're a business owner who owns and operates a crop production operation in ag. There's a lot to do, and this is not all of it. I didn't talk about all the laws and regulations that you need to be aware of and the reports you have to file for um, your water usage and your nitrogen usage and all kinds of other things. It gets ugly, but you got to do it. That's how you run your business, make money, keep the environment safe, keep yourself from getting fines, and do all the things you're supposed to do. So that is the topics in crop production outline.